A Beavis. You guys want to know something crazy? I only really learned anything about Hollow Knight a month or two ago. Before then, I only just knew the surface level stuff like the name of the game and how the main character looked, but that was it. So when I first started to play the game, I went in completely blind. Because of this, I probably had one of the best gaming experiences in my life. The gameplay is up my alley 100%. But I also found several moments during my playthrough that met the checklist. The checklist of doom, the checklist of horror. So I got to work on making the video, and now we're here. Today, I'll be discussing moments from this game that I found fear or horror in. I'll be spoiling the story to Hollow Knight in doing this, so if you're unfamiliar with the game and don't want to be spoiled on much, I recommend checking out the game and coming back to watch this later. It's like really cheap, dude. It's like $15. That's like a large order from Brahms type of price. If you don't care though, then I guess we could just get right into it, right after I briefly explain what this game and its story is about. If you don't know much about Hollow Knight, you play as this character who is often referred to as the Knight by fans. You explore this area called Hollow Nest, which is a place filled with its tragic history and mindless bugs that attack you. We learn through this history that Hollow Nest was once ruled by someone named the Pale King, who was someone that made the land prosperous eons ago. One day, however, something called the infection started to take over the minds of the residents that lived on Hollow Nest, turning them into these aggressive husks that we see all throughout the game. The goal of this game isn't super apparent, but with the mystery behind the infection, a natural mission is made mentally while playing the game to find more of the land's history to attempt to understand what the infection is and what to do to stop it. That's just a brief explanation for what Hollow Knight is. Now that you're caught up, we can begin the video. Once you begin the game and you explore the world for a bit, you can find yourself in an area called Green Path. Looking around here can lead us to a place called the Stone Sanctuary. An item called the Lumafly Lantern is needed to explore here as it's used to light the place up. This, however, side note, cost 1800 Geo, which is the currency of the game. So after balling out on this one item and returning to this place, the following events are what's rewarded to you. On the walk into the Stone Sanctuary, these bug statues with these nasty black streaks flowing out of their eyes can be found. The entrance to the sanctuary is a statue as well, though it is much larger, and the opening to the sanctuary is in its gaping mouth. We go inside it, and the calm music that was playing before slowly fades away. Progressing further in here leads us to an open area. Bug corpses can be seen scattered everywhere, and in the middle of the room is another statue with streaks coming out of its eyes, though this one is just a gigantic head with long curls of stone hair coming out of it. If you have an item called the Dream Nail, approaching the statue shows a warrior dream boss named No Eyes. Warrior dream bosses are like a unique class of boss. It's not too important, but No Eyes' appearance can be described as this big bug warrior with faded blonde hair, battle armor, a small proboscis, and, of course, she has empty eye sockets with streaks of black coming out of them. We can listen to her talk, and she tells us,
"My child, can you still see? Please, don't hurt me. Can't sleep with your eyes open, little one. Can't dream if you're still breathing, little one. Precious children, you speak such loathsome things as you sleep. Your claws scratch and scrape. Precious children, a monster has come for us in the dark. Will you sing for me?"
After she says this, we get the option to fight her. We select yes. The battle begins, and No Eyes begins to teleport randomly throughout the room while repeatedly singing a short, haunting lullaby that I would only hear in my nightmares. Her attacks consist of these ghostly spirits that share her flowing hair and her empty black holes for eyes. These spirits grow in numbers as you damage her more and more. After timing your attacks just right and avoiding the seemingly infinite spirits, No Eyes can be defeated, with her sending the battle off with what sounds like a tear-filled cry. After her defeat, she returns to where she was when we first found her, and she, filled with gratitude and a better grasp of the situation, begins to tell us.
One by one, their eyes closed at last. I felt it, a warm stillness falling over us. I'm sorry I was frightened of you. You were always protecting us, even when we couldn't see you. Take us there, please. A place where light cannot haunt us. A place without dreams. Please.
No Eyes is finally put to rest, for good. See, these warrior dream bosses are essentially the restless spirits of warriors that met their demise. Us battling their spirit/dream form allows us to finally set them free, to truly pass on. That's really nice and all, but like, What the heck is wrong with you, woman? None of the other Dream Boss battles are as creepy as this one. None of them have a creepy lullaby repeating constantly over and over and over and over again as you fight them. And like, for real, this fight, for me at least, just lasts forever. If you're a gamer and can beat her in like a minute, good for you, here's your prize. But when getting the footage for this video, I had to restart the game to go back and fight Noise. And in this new save, I had to grind 1800 Geo to get the Lumafly lantern so I could even see what the heck was happening in this room you fight her in. Then after that, I had to go get the Dream Nail, which is an entire grind on its own. I then came back to finally fight her, and it took me like 5 minutes. You're probably saying to yourself, "Shook, 5 minutes doesn't sound that long." Let me lay it out for you guys. That is 5 whole minutes of listening to this.
Get out of my head! Get out of my head!
Her fight is also just super tedious for me. Like, while I fight her, I sit at the bottom of the room waiting for her to teleport somewhere closer to the ground so I can actually hit her. I could just go to the higher parts of the room she goes to, but that up there, all this space up here, that's the danger zone. I always get hit if I go up too high, so instead of risking my life, I wait patiently at the bottom of the room. I also assume that certain parts of the room that No Eyes can teleport to are randomly selected, so this means she could just stay chilling at the top of the room for several seconds, singing to herself the song of despair and nightmares, while I'm just sat at the bottom of the room looking like a freaking doofus because I'm too scared to go where she's at because I know I'm gonna get hit. Anyways, this fight is super scary. It was this moment in my first playthrough of the game that made me motivated to make a video on Hollow Knight. The lullaby she sings throughout the battle is super creepy, and despite my complaints, I really like that about this fight. The small bits of build up to her fight as well, with the statues and the darkness that surrounds the room, it all adds a nice flavor to the horror of this fight. And speaking of horror, let me elaborate on what No Eyes' whole deal is. Like, why is she creepy like this? Why does she go by No Eyes? Through her dialogue, I inferred that she was some sort of caretaker in her past. When the infection came and started consuming the minds of the bugs that lived in Hollow Nest, the bugs that she was caring for became infected as well. They began to show this violent aggression towards her. Once they did, she understood what she had to do. The infection can enter one's mind through their dreams. So, to prevent those she cared for from dreaming, she ripped their eyes out of their head and did the same to herself. The injuries of this act must have caused all of their demise, as the stone sanctuary seems to be some sort of grave for No Eyes. She never truly died though. After she technically passed away, she continued to exist as this ghost, dream, spirit thing. She was in this limbo of not being quite alive as well as not being quite dead for who knows how long. That's when we, the player, come in. When we approach No Eyes' dream form, she at first mistakes us for an infected bug, so out of pure instinct, she tries to defend herself. But once we beat her, she finally learns that we're just trying to give her peace. So her last request then is that we send her to a place without light, somewhere where light will no longer harm her. The theme of overwhelming and consuming light is always paired with the infection. It almost seems like when someone is infected, their vision and their mind is taken over by this burning brightness. Remember this, y'all, because later I'll expand more on what the infection is and its horror. There's something else I wanted to bring up, but I couldn't really find a good place for me to do so I'm just gonna shoehorn the topic right here. Once you defeat a boss, and if you previously collected something called the Hunter's Journal, you can get extra information on them. For dream bosses though, it's a little different. You instead can read a quote from them. For No Eyes, her quote is, "They're coming. What's inside of you? Strip it out. Do with that what you will." By the way, we're still not done talking about No Eyes. I'm not complaining though because I'm like having the time of my life right now. Something crazy y'all should know is that the backstory for No Eyes I told y'all was actually the toned down version. No Eyes is a boss created by Kickstarter backer for Hollow Knight. The backer's name is someone named Lisa Kretschmar. Kretschmar? They're the ones that made No Eyes' design and story. Her original story was so disturbing to the creators of Hollow Knight Team Cherry that they asked Lisa to tweak it a bit and make it not so terrifying. One day on Reddit, however, Lisa laid out No Eyes' original backstory. Let me tell it to ya. The original story starts off with No Eyes returning from battle. In her return though, she learned of the spread of the infection. She couldn't bear to leave children she was caring for behind to be consumed by it, but when she went to save them, she was too late. They were infected and began to quickly surround and attack her. No Eyes was unable to bring herself to fight back, so instead, she ripped out her own eyes to be blind to what her children were about to do to her. When they began to ravage her, she lovingly sang sing them their lullaby. Yeah, that's pretty messed up. As I read Lisa describe what happened to No Eyes when she got attacked by her children, I imagined that she was also like holding her hands together and like smiling as she was being ripped apart, which made the story so much worse for me. This was an awesome read though, and I'm so freaking happy Lisa came out with this extra information. I now want to move on to one of the first areas in the game that bothered me. It's a place called the Royal Waterways. It's not the entire area, but just an isolated chunk of it. In this chunk, there are these creatures called Flukes in it. And y'all, let me tell ya, I hate these things. I hate these things so much. I hate the way they look, hate the way they sound. I have a phobia of just gross stuff, right? Stuff like prominent eyes on creatures or slimy tentacles. Just nasty stuff like that messes with me real bad. And when entering the Flukes domain, it's just filled with nasties. Surrounding the walls around you is like this fluke slime, and you also find their stumpy, wriggly egg sacs all over the place. I make it a goal to myself when I explore this area that if I see those stupid sacs, to absolutely annihilate them to prevent the perpetuation of these things. The music and ambience don't make my time here any better. There's this bellowing cello constantly playing in the back, creating this very tense vibe. And paired with this is the squelching and babbling coming from these things called Flukemon. They are found literally everywhere. They're these tall, bipedal monsters that once you're spotted by them, it becomes their life's purpose to hunt you. They charge at you while squawking to themselves. You can try killing them, but when you do, the corpse of the Flukemon splits into two separate beings. One of these halves becomes this flying leech-looking thing that slowly approaches you while screaming with the voice of a madman. The other half becomes this dog/worm hybrid thing that runs at you at the speed equal to a starved animal. In its charge, teeth begin to stick out of its anus mouth, and noises similar to someone choking on their spit begin to come from it. Just burn it with fire, burn all of them, and I'm not even done, sadly. There's also these things called Fluke phase, which are like the infant form of Flukemon, and you know what? Burn them too. I'm burning the babies with fire. These things, when they're not chasing their prey, appear as these flying little pieces of waste with these big-lipped mouths and dark tentacles coming from their body. If they manage to spot you, they make this pig-like squeal, and rows of teeth reveal themselves from their mouth as they fly at you with the speed of a bullet. Fluke phase and Flukemon, on their own, can be reasonably dealt with, however, though you may be disgusted during the process of handling them. But if you don't know what you're doing and just rush in their domain unprepared, this can happen to you. So yeah, these things suck, and if these creatures get a load of food, they can sort of evolve and become a Flukemunga. A Flukemunga. These chunky boys don't really bother me as much as the other guys do, visually at least, but they still suck. They, first of all, hit like a truck, which isn't cool, but also their appearance. This grown-up fluke is now completely wrapped in its own fat and slime. This means, despite their size, when they spot you, not only do they hit like a truck, they become a truck. They rush at you with an intense ferocity that makes them faceplant into the cavern walls you find them in, creating this echoing thump that shakes your scream. And the thing that gave birth to this monster and its other fellow monsters is something called the Flukemarm. It's the largest of the flukes, and you can find it hanging from the roof of its battle room. Covering its oval-like body are these many mouths that spew out fluke phase. And also, this is what you hear from it while you fight it. This noise is mostly covered up by the music and the fluke phase flying at you, so you're welcome for showing you its crisp audio. And also, I couldn't find a proper time to put this in. Here's my first reaction to flukes.
Hey, that's creepy. I don't like that. It's not cool.
The next area I want to cover is, to my knowledge, accessible through two main ways. I first entered it after beating the Mantis sister boss. They're not really relevant to this video, but after their defeat, they do give you access to a new area. However, the other way to access this area is more interesting to me. You can find it behind this destructible wall, and breaking it leads you to a new area that gives you a promise of adventure. This may blind you though, and the consequence of that could cause you to walk on weak ground in the room, making the floor give up. If you descend through the hole the weak ground covered, you're met with a long fall until you eventually land in a dark environment filled with many empty corpses of bugs. This place is called Deepnest, and it is what I consider to be the scariest area in the game. Let's first cover the ambience. As you look through Deepnest, there's this chilling ambience that plays. In it can be heard this loud shrieking violin, as well as this deep humming that goes from your right audio channel to your left. in this constant loop. There's also this cello that comes in at certain parts of the ambience that instills a powerful dread and hopelessness within you. Along with these instruments, there's also a constant crawling and buzzing coming from all the insects that surround you, never giving you a moment's rest. That's just the ambience though. Everything else in Deepnest is not any better. The norm for this area is getting startled by flying spiders, reanimated bug corpses, stepping on eggs that produce hordes of spider infants, and walking on weak ground that breaks abruptly, causing you to fall through. Those reanimated corpses I mentioned are actually bugs with a parasite inside them. After you beat the bug, the parasite takes over their body and turns them into this twisted, deformed version of itself. They gain this massive boost in speed and agility as well, and let's say you kill the bug before the parasite takes over and you walk away, there are times when the bug's body is taken over, and from the darkness can emerge them in parasite form, coming at you in a bloodthirsty sprint. There's a few individual characters we can meet in Deepnest that I find creepy as well. One of them can be found behind this breakable wall. On the other side, it can be found this black, long-necked creature wearing a smiling mask with a split down the middle of it, named Midwife. She emerges from a wall at the end of the room, and as she exits the wall, you can hear bones clicking together. In our first discussion with her, she tells us that she's a friend, and if it's information we seek, she can deliver. She begins to inform us of some of the history of this place and its previous ruler, but she interrupts herself, saying that she'd love to tell us more, but that she is starving. After this, she opens up her mask, revealing her face that has this nasty teeth-filled mouth, as well as having these small beady eyes. She lunges her jaw towards us over and over and over. The only thing that'll make her stop is either us leaving her alone or attacking her. Doing this causes her to close her mask and retreat into the wall she came from. We can return to this place at later points in the game to get more dialogue from Midwife, but nothing really changes. Each time we return to her, she has something minor to say, such as a new piece of history or information about something random. After she tells us this, she warns us about her hunger, and then she attacks us. However, something interesting can happen if we use the dream nail on her. Before she attacks us, we can use the dream nail on her to read her thoughts, and can read her thinking to herself, "Gah, get out, get out, get out!" I've wondered for a bit now, is this telling herself to leave? Cause she knows what she'll do to us if we let our guard down? Or is it her wishing us to get out, but being unable to express it vocally? If it's the latter, then does that mean Midwife's actions are involuntary and not manipulative? Is her hunger so powerful that it overwhelms her ability to control her own body? It's a pretty interesting question, and I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts. The next individual character I want to discuss can be found behind another breakable wall. Behind the wall is a large tunnel-filled location. Looking through it eventually leads us to finding us. We try to reach where we saw ourselves, but they vanished.
Oh, what the heck?
We progress deeper into the caverns, briefly seeing ourselves as we do so, as well as bodies that can be seen all over the place. These bodies foreshadow that something very bad is near. The end of these tunnels eventually lead us into a spacious room. Going inside of the room and proceeding deeper into it, the place we entered from gets shut away by several tough string-like walls. Now locked in here, we can see from the roof of the room multiple hanging carcasses of different creatures, and below these, we can find ourselves once again. We stare at them face to face and take one step forward. When we do though, our doppelganger screams a thunderous screech that completely freezes us in place. Its head turns to an uncomfortable angle, and it begins to brutally transform. A long, obscene neck grows from the bottom of its head first. A torso with a spiny spine and an infection-filled stomach comes after. And finally, 6 sharp, elongated limbs suddenly shoot out from its body, giving it this towering stature. Paired with these limbs is a pointed, stumpy tail. This grotesque beast is Nosk, described in the Hunter's Journal as an entity that wears the stolen faces from one's memories and plucks at the heartstrings of its victims. After it finishes transforming, we begin to battle it. It primarily runs back and forth to each of the ends of the room. In its sprint can be heard the quick pattering of its many feet. For brief moments during the fight, this creature breaks its consistent movement pattern with a couple of other attacks. The first one is when it abruptly stops in the middle of the room to shoot acidic infection to random parts of the floor. The second attack is a calculated leap to try to squash where you are in the room. And in the third one, Nosk jumps to the roof to climb on it, and from there, it begins to track where we walk, attempting to hit us with big droplets of infection. During this battle, while we avoid Nosk's attacks and its movements, there's this harrowing and vicious music that keeps us even more on the edge of our seats. If you manage to beat Nosk despite all of this, you get rewarded with seeing it explode, leaving only its cracked head that it copied from us. This fight, mainly because of the horror from it, is one of my favorites in the game. The music and the design for this fight is so awesome, like it makes my skin crawl. And the build up to it was masterfully done too. We were first enticed with seeing what was in this new area after after breaking the wall that hid it. What kept luring us deeper and deeper into this area was seeing our doppelganger. I have learnt from a lot of media that copies, mimics, and other things similar to those are fun to learn more about, but the answers we get as to what they truly are rarely ever good. That's what happened here. We see this copy of us, and even though some would assume that the appearance of this copy could sign that something bad is approaching, and it would be safer just to leave, the unknown is just so attractive, so we persist further. For some playthroughs, around the time when you first enter the Deepnest, you can actually see Nosk way before you fight it, so for those people that this happened to, they were even more susceptible to Nosk's bait, and just like a bug being lured into a Venus flytrap, we follow this enticing goal, only to be led into a dead-end room and locked away from any escape. For the people unprepared for what came next, and were beaten by Nosk, when they go back to its room to fight it again, unlike most bosses that give you some heads up before its fight begins, Nosk does no such thing, and instead, immediately rushes you on sight, giving you a little scare.
What the heck is even...
Onto a semi-new area. The reason for me saying semi is because this new area is still in Deepnest. We can find the entrance to it in this massive room. We can platform our way towards the entrance, but as we do, we can find this silk-covered circular room. Inside of it can be found a few groups of webbed up bugs. If we use the dream nail on them, we can read their thoughts that say, "Not friends, they lied." We leave and make our way to this new area. It can be found in another one of these silk-covered rooms nearby. We go inside, and instead of seeing a pile of webbed up prey, we're greeted by several short bugs, each of them wrapped up in a faded red robe. When we meet these guys, a simple off-key tune begins to play. We can talk to a couple of them, and each of them respond to us in a voice vaguely resembling singing. The ones here that are willing to talk to us all tell us different words of flattery, but they also each tell us one straightforward request: to sit on the bench in the middle of the room. We could try to get more insight on these guys' motives through using the dream nail on them, but it's ineffective, so all we can do is sit on the bench. Once we sit on the bench, webs suddenly reveal themselves attached to us. With these webs making us unable to escape, the bugs that surround us take many small but heard steps towards us. The previously jolly music begins to distort greatly as they do. The room gets darker and darker until we're left with a black screen. Booming thumps and smashes come, and after those comes a deafening roar. When we wake after whatever happened to us, we can see that we're stuck, wrapped in many thick webs and strings. We struggle and struggle in our tough cocoon until we eventually break it and escape. Now free, we can roam in this new place called the Beast's Den. This area shares a lot of similarities with Deepnest, but what separates them is that this land is much more claustrophobic, and also there's a distinct lack of eerie violins. Instead, all that could be heard for ambience is the communication and motion of spiders around us. As we journey through here, silhouettes of said spiders frequently scuttle across our screen. For the people with arachnophobia, I'm sorry. I salute you for sticking by still. And to be completely candid with y'all, in terms of horror at least, I think I covered everything interesting in this area. We're close to moving on to the next subject, but there's one more little monster I want to talk about real quick. Something I gotta tell y'all first though, is that there are these cute little buggas called grubs that we set free throughout the game from these glass cases. There's a lot of grubs to save, so because of this, it becomes almost second nature when spotting a locked up grub to just go to it and set it free. However, a few times throughout this game, you can find these things called grub mimics. There are these mysterious creatures that appear as grubs locked away in glass cases, but when you break them out, they transform into something disturbing and chase after you. They're still not too much of a threat, but their mere existence causes you to be on alert whenever breaking out any of the innocent grubs. And remember how I said that I hate gross things like prominent eyes or tentacles on creatures earlier? Well, when we set a grub mimic free, it shifts from its cute grub disguise to, check this out, a six-legged predator with these 3 long shifting fangs coming from its big mouth, and it grows a pronounced eye that hangs from a dangly thing on its head. Actually, like the worst thing ever. And on top of that, when it attacks you, it constantly screeches, still in the voice of a grub. It keeps this voice even in its last breath. So when I kill these things, even though it was in self-defense, it makes the noise I'd imagine a cute little grub would make if I ever killed one. So then I just feel awful after killing them. I don't necessarily feel bad for the grub mimics themselves, but just hearing their death scream always puts the image of a grub dying violently in my mind, and that's what makes me feel awful. I have a lot of emotions for these guys. I'm gonna show y'all my first reaction to a grub mimic, and we'll move on.
What the heck is even that?
After all that spider talk, it's got me feeling a little romantical. Lucky for me, there's a building in this game called the Tower of Love. Take my hand and let's go have some fun. I'm sorry. For real, there is a place called the Tower of Love in this game, and once we find its key, we can go inside and find the next point of discussion for this video. It's another individual character. The higher we go in this tower, the more we can hear the laughter and moans from someone in the distance. Along with these questionable noises can be heard a grub. We investigate deeper into the tower and see many of the glass jars we find the grubs locked in throughout the game. However, now all that's in these jars are rotting bodies and a few of these vengefly things. We begin to approach the peak of the tower, but we suddenly get stopped by being locked into a room with this strange guy called the Collector. He descends from the roof of the room and begins a battle with us after a long manic cackle. The Collector appears as this naked entity with a black body, 2 white spots for eyes, has an elongated head, and has 4 arms with grabby hands. The battle starts off pretty normal. Standard battle music begins to play, but a little ways into the fight, it becomes more and more apparent that this music has been tampered with and is more jarring sounding. The Collector's attacks mainly consist of him giddily spinning and jumping around the room, some of these jumps being aimed directly at you with open arms. But he also drops on you glass jars containing enemies from the roof of the room. If these attacks get the better of you and you're defeated, when you return to the Tower of Love, you can find your shade locked away in one of the Collector's jars. Your shade is basically like your ghost/soul. Rematching the Collector though and doing enough damage to him causes him to wrap his arms around his body and hunch over, writhing in pain and dripping from him a strange black liquid. We can continuously strike him in this state until he dies. He spews orbs of black as he does, and eventually falls down on the floor and makes a dark puddle that sinks into the ground. With his defeat, we gain access to the top of the tower. Here we can find 3 encased grubs, as well as a map that shows us where all of the other imprisoned grubs are. So what's this all about? Who is the Collector? If you haven't caught on yet, he was the one who took all of the grubs captive and scattered them everywhere. It's clear he has an obsession with collecting. I mean, look at his name, right? But why? I actually don't really know, y'all. That's kind of a bad thing, because now we're left with no answer as to what his motive really is. But at the same time, it's a good thing, because now we're left with no answer as to what his motive really is. There might be some hidden piece of dialogue or text somewhere in the game that explains everything about him, and I'm sure if there is, y'all will let me know, but for now, I like the mystery. His motives being open makes it to where you can construct your own reality and ask interesting questions. Like, does he collect to feed some sort of addiction? Does he have an obsession with all he collects? He's definitely obsessed with grubs, so maybe? What does he do to those he collects? And why, when we enter the Tower of Love and progress deeper into it, we hear his laughter paired with grub whimpers? See what I mean? You can do a lot of fun theorizing with this guy. By fun, I mean terrifying. Everything I've discussed in this video so far, before the Collector, was more creepy than anything. And that's why I found them fascinating, but the Collector himself is just uncomfortable. We're moving on. After that weird mess, we're finally going to cover the infection. The infection in this game fascinates me so much. Its involvement created so many weird designs, and there's so much haunting information about it as well. Let me first explain what it is and how it works though. The infection is this sickness that takes over the minds of so many bugs in Hollow Nest. Like, almost everything that fights us in this game is doing so just because they're so lost to the infection mentally. When someone gets infected, their mind is overtaken by this burning light, and to resist this light makes the infection even more powerful and you even more susceptible to it. Isn't that just awful? Imagine dealing with a sickness that destroys your mind and that grows more and more powerful the more you resist it. Do you just accept it at that point? How can you when you're constantly surrounded by its horrors? How can you welcome something that turns your kind into these primal mutated versions of themselves? What's weird is that there is actually someone in this game that accepts the infection openly. We'll cover them in a bit. bit though. I'd like to bring up now how the infection changes the appearance of those it contaminates. Infection in this game is represented through a deep orange. This can be clearly seen through the early game infected bugs we see in Hollow Knight. With these early enemies, we can see the infection in them through these orange dots in their eye sockets, as well as the brutish way they carry themselves. But there's other bugs in this game that the infection mutates to a degree. There's this enormous bug we could find sealed off in a hidden room. Its belly is just composed of infection, and from it gives birth to similar smaller bugs also consumed by infection. And also something else just really terrifying is that infection takes over an entire area in the game. This area is called the Forgotten Crossroads, and it's literally one of the first areas we can explore in the game. It doesn't start off overwhelmed with infection though. After a certain point, when you've progressed enough of Hollow Knight's story, then that's when the infection takes over the Forgotten Crossroads. When it does, it causes the area to be renamed to the Infected Crossroads. Bubbles of infection crowd the place, and the already infected bugs that roamed the land before have been twisted and contorted to even more primal versions of themselves. There's these guys called Furious Vengeflies, who before the infection took over them, was a slow and weak enemy we could take out in a hit or two, but now they've been juiced up to these relentless predators that once they spot you, they will immediately begin to chase you while screeching squeals of savagery. Killing them is challenging too. Our attacks barely slow down their pursuit, and once we finally do kill them, their remains basically turn into bombs, which is sort of like another even more infected bug we find here, the Violent Husk, who when it spots us, hisses and rushes us, blowing up on contact. There's other creepy bugs like these in the Infected Crossroads, and other creepy infected bugs found at later points in the game, but the ones I discussed here are the ones that really left an impression on me. So we'll just move on, I guess, and now we can finally talk about the guy that actively praises and glorifies the infection, the Moss Prophet. The Moss Prophet is an infected individual we can meet in this game. When we first go into the room he's in the distance can be seen his yammering while surrounded by other moss folk protecting him. Approaching him causes him to hide in fear as he sends his lackeys to kill us. Once we beat them, he leaves his defensive position and just continues to yap again. Something else weird about this guy though is that he just doesn't stop talking. It's comical at first, right? Like he's got this high-pitched voice that sounds like a freaking minion, but like I said, he just doesn't stop talking. It kind of becomes eerie after a while, and when we listen to what he is saying, we learn that he is preaching the greatness of the infection. He has only like 2 small paragraphs of dialogue, but I sort of find that the reason why what he is saying here is so disturbing. I imagine his repetitive talk is just him repeating the same short phrases for the infection. His phrases confuse me though, because he is like dying to the infection, like many of the other residents of Hollow Nest, as shown through the massive orange cysts growing on his body. Does he know this? Is it even him spouting these praises anymore, or something else? After we leave this dude and come back sometime later, we can find that the infection has taken over his and his followers' bodies more than it already had, to the point of killing them. The Moss Prophet's gibberish is completely absent now, and in its place is the loud beating coming from the bloated bubbles of infection strewn all over the bodies of everyone in the room aside us. Dream nailing the Moss Prophet while in this state just gives us the sentence, blazing bright. I was honestly excited when meeting this dude for the second time again on my first playthrough, but then when I entered his room, I just saw him dead on the ground, which is something that apparently a lot of people only saw when playing Hollow Knight for the first time. Like I've seen online, not many people actually got the chance to see this dude alive. They just walked into his room at one point in their playthrough and just saw him rotting on the ground, which is kind of funny. There's someone else we can meet beside the Moss Prophet that we actively see get consumed more and more by the infection as we play the game. This other individual being someone that apparently left a scar on many people's hearts. A female mining bug named Mila. We can consistently find her picking away in this isolated crystal mine, joyfully singing to herself a song about death. The lyrics to this song involve the theme of burying one's family and then themselves. I'm not sure if this song has too much relevance other than its connection to death, because as we'll see in a bit here, Mila being the one singing this song alone to herself is pretty tragic. When talking to Mila, we hear this shaky, almost nervous voice come from her, but she still emanates this uplifting positivity. She openly invites us to join her singing, saying she bets that we have a beautiful voice. Sticking around and listening to more of her singing, we can see her goofily mess up the lyrics to the song that she's singing, which is just cute. Everything about this girl is just super sweet, and it's pretty easy to build an attachment to her. There's other characters in this game that we can talk to to and interact with that have this nice vibe about them, but Mila has this simplistic warmness and welcoming vibe about her. It's a nice change of pace in the game. But after making some progress within the game's story, we can return to Mila, who now has new dialogue, and she asks us to join her in her mining. She tells us that she senses coming across something special if she just dug a little deeper. She brings up how what she's doing can be pretty challenging, but it doesn't bother her. In fact, she can put in the work without even needing to sleep. Using the dream nail on her gives us some clues as to why she's mining. Her dream nail text tells us, "I'm so close. Keep singing, crystals. Keep singing so I can find you. Keep whispering, crystals. I can almost hear what you're saying." We can leave again and return after advancing even more of the game, but when we arrive, Mila's delightful singing is completely missing. Checking in on her gives us the sight of 2 vibrant orange dots forming in her eye sockets. Her new dialogue tells us, "Bury my body, cover my shell. What meaning in darkness? Yet here I remain. I'll wait here forever till light blooms again." Dream nailing her in this condition gives us text that says, "How much longer? Kill it. How much longer? Dangerous. How much longer? Kill it. How much longer? Kill the empty one. How much longer must I dig?" So sadly, Mila has become infected. Something interesting to point out is this infection is guiding her to want to kill us specifically. We can infer this from her dream nail dialogue that says, "Kill the empty one." The term empty one, through details we get throughout the game, is most likely connected to us, which is really sad. I've read online that what caused her to be infected was the light from the crystals that she was surrounded by. It makes sense given the crystals were apparently singing to her, and we know the infection does weird stuff to your mind, but no matter what we do to try to find why she got infected, it doesn't change the fact that she is. And what's even more heartbreaking is that if we return for a 4th time, way later in the game, she becomes so far gone that she is nearly indistinguishable from the average infected mining bug we can find in the area. She relentlessly thrashes and throws her pickaxe at us. The only thing stopping her mindless aggression is us killing her. If we do this, we can hear her cry out in pain as she dies, and after that, she's gone. It's here where I want to bring up the cause of the infection. Why is it here? Where did it come from? The answer to this honestly makes me mad. Not in a way that it isn't satisfying or that the reason is stupid, but just that, from my understanding, the infection exists as a means to exact a selfish punishment or judgment. The infection is the aftermath of when a god is forgotten. Its followers moved on to something different. The infection was created from a divine being known as the Radiance, a god of light who appears as this elegant yet opposing moth. But with the arrival of the Pale King, this moth clan abandoned the Radiance and began to follow him. But memories of her somehow lingered. Because of this, she was able to make her move and wriggled her fiery light into the weak minds of all the bugs that lived in Hollownest. The bugs of Hollownest before the rise of the infection were essentially just like us humans. I believe they had a culture, they had lives, families, dreams, but when the Radiance began her attack, she used all that against them. Through their dreams, she showed them her light, making their minds absolutely shatter, right? And as I've written the script, I've been imagining just a light so bright, so alluring, that the near sight of it just makes you lose it. And it's honestly messed with me a little bit. It's like hard to fathom. And I really hate the Radiance, y'all. I love her as an antagonist. I love her as a character. She's just so well written, so enticing, right? But like what she does to everyone in this game, like I despise her for that. I understand her motives as to why she did what she did. She wanted to punish those who forsake her, right? I assume if she were to be forgotten, it'd result in a fate similar to death. So her anger is understandable, but her actions aren't. Look at Mila. She was so lovely and so cheery, someone completely innocent in all of this, yet the Radiance still allowed her to be consumed by her jealous light. Nothing justifies this, and that is why I hate her so much. But it makes for great horror, and the Radiance brought up such a fun concept in a story that I personally have not seen much of. Instead of the common theme I see in media, where light is shown as the good and just, it is instead the near opposite in Hollow Knight. It's like a selfish cancer, slaughtering everything that accepts and resists it. The Radiance does have someone, or rather something, that can oppose her. It's us, the night, and what composes the night, the void. The void is the dark that can combat the Radiance's light. It's this ungathered and destructive force found in a place called the Abyss. However, it isn't much better than the Radiance in her infection. The void has collected its fair share of victims, and it has its own monsters too. One of these monsters made of void is the Collector, surprisingly enough, but the other monsters made of void can be found in the Abyss. Here, we can find pools of void, and in them can be seen these physical shadows that aggressively flail towards the player. There's also other void enemies in the Abyss, referred to by the Hunter's Journal as siblings. They appear as these void phantoms that float towards the player, contact with them obviously causing harm to us. Also, these entities are basically the ghost of others that have died down here, which is interesting. We also have our own ghost. Our ghost is referred to as the Shade, as I mentioned earlier with the Collector, and we have to fight them when we die. Well, you don't have to, but dying in this game and being separated from your Shade basically nerfs you, and you also lose all your money unless you beat your Shade. So yeah, you really want to fight them. But I brought up the Shade because they have this eerie theme when we approach them. I mentioned how earlier with the No Eyes fight, that was what motivated me to make a video on Hollow Knight's horror. Well, it was that, but what brought up the idea was this theme song. It being this like hid lullaby song, it just caught my attention. Those in this game that have fallen to Void can be seen in a gruesome state similar to the aftermath of someone overloaded with infection. Instead of bright orange cysts growing from their corpses though, dark murky tears of Void flow out of their eyes. Despite Void being another evil near equal to the Radiance, the Void is one of, if not the only way to defeat her. The Pale King understood this and tried his best to use the Void to help save the kingdom. He used it to make these living things called vessels. A vessel is what we are, a genderless being, made from void inside of the abyss. This void inside of a vessel would hopefully make this living thing something free of will and free of thought. These factors made vessels perfect to fight the Radiance, as their influence would have no effect on them. The vessels weren't necessarily made to fight the Radiance, but to rather seal her away in a locked up location found in the Forgotten Crossroads. That was the Pale King's plan, to seal the Radiance in a perfect vessel and to then lock that vessel away permanently in a protected area. The king got to work, making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vessels down in the abyss, until eventually he found what he deemed to be the purest of them all. Quick side note, but the sibling enemies that we find in the abyss that I said were ghosts earlier belong to vessels that sadly died in the abyss. A lot of this information I dropped on y'all can be seen in a once forgotten memory, this memory belonging to the character we play as, the Knight. The memory begins with us digging ourselves out of a pile of other dead vessels in the abyss. Once we're out, we realize we're at the very bottom of the area. It seems there is nowhere else we can go aside from up, so we begin our climb out of the abyss, avoiding spikes and small enemies as we do, but during our ascent, we can see bodies of other vessels fall violently near us. We move on despite this, however, and we eventually reach the top of the abyss, held onto the edge of a platform leading to the exit. We see a vessel standing with the Pale King. The Pale King exits the abyss, leaving us alone with this other vessel. They look back at us before following the Pale King. We fall off the edge of the platform, descending all the way down to where we just climbed from, and after this, we can read words from the Pale King. These words being directed to the vessel that exited the abyss with him. You shall seal the blinding light that plagues their dreams. You are the vessel. You are the Hollow Knight. That vessel that exited the abyss with the Pale King was the Hollow Knight, the name of the game. The vessel that left the abyss with the Pale King was deemed pure by him. This also means that they're the one to seal the radiance within them to be locked away forever. After the Pale King chose his pure vessel, he closed off the abyss. This act also sealed off his void offspring from ever being free. I think some managed to escape still, I don't really know how though. And I also haven't mentioned this yet, but we're technically related to all of the other vessels the Pale King made. Whenever I say the Pale King made the vessels, he didn't like construct them out of like stone or some other building material. He got down dirty with someone called the White Lady and literally made the vessels. He dropped the eggs into the abyss, allowing those eggs to be consumed by the void. And then when those eggs hatched, a vessel was made. I just haven't explained that yet, and it's kind of crazy saying all that out loud. But yeah, all the vessels that were made from the Pale King are related to us. And it sounds really obvious, but really understanding what that means, that the vessels are related to us, puts a lot of this stuff in this game into a more chilling perspective. Like, remember those ghostly shadows I mentioned earlier that lived in the abyss? Remember how I said they're referred to by the game as siblings? That's because that's quite literally what they are. And also, at the start of the flashback I talked about earlier, when we dug ourselves out of the pile of vessel corpses, that's us essentially digging ourselves out of a pile of our dead family members. I don't really know what killed them all though. Was it the Pale King killing them because they weren't deemed pure by him? Or did they fall from a great height like the vessels we saw in the flashback? I'm not sure, but it's all some pretty messed up stuff, man. Luckily, the character we play as is supposedly a thoughtless being that can't perceive how messed up its life is. Except that's just not the case. The idea that these vessels have no will and no mind can be disproven so easily simply by the fact that they are alive. The fact that vessels, as soon as they're born, can make the decision for themselves that they want to escape the abyss, to me at least, that makes them flawed for the job of sealing the radiance. The Hollow Knight though was especially not fit for the job, because when the Pale King took them to prepare them to seal the radiance, the Pale King was also foiling his own plans. The act of raising the Hollow Knight and showing them love and affection made them not entirely thoughtless and free of will. This wasn't made apparent until the Hollow Knight was already permanently sealed away with the radiance though. When the Hollow Knight was first sealed, sealed, for some time, the Pale King thought his plan worked, but the Radiance's infection and influence began to seep from where the Hollow Knight was sealed. With the failure of the Hollow Knight plan, the Pale King ran away to an isolated place, dying sometime after for unknown reasons. But if the Pale King's plan failed, what happened to the Hollow Knight? Well, they're still stuck sealed off in the room with the Radiance. And as we established earlier, the Hollow Knight is definitely not immune to the Radiance's power. They, to some extent, have a will and have a mind. And they also have the Radiance locked away inside of them. Being infected and driven mad by her light, like most of the bugs in Hollow Nest, is one thing, but being the one to hold the source of the light for who knows how long sounds like a fate worse than death. What makes things even more eerie and tragic and sad is that at the end of the game, we have to fight the Hollow Knight, and in this fight, after doing enough damage to them, they sort of snap out of the Radiance's influence for a brief moment, and the first thing they do with their free will is grab their weapon and repeatedly stab themselves in the gut over and over and over and over again. I've read online that this is them trying to end themselves to finally take out the Radiance, but I've always seen it as an attempt from them to just be free, to finally die and forget all they've been through. That thought makes what they do here all the more messed up to me. And to add even more to this tragedy, the sheer amount of sacrifice that went into the Hollow Knight plan cannot be understated. With the thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths that came from the vessels inside of the Abyss, to the Dreamers that sealed the Hollow Knight, I haven't had a chance to explain them yet, but in order to seal the Hollow Knight, 3 individuals gave up their lives in order to be some sort of like lock to keep the Hollow Knight in where they were meant to be locked up in. They sacrificed themselves, and there's just so much that went into the Hollow Knight plan, and it was all for nothing. Everyone's efforts, all this death was for nothing. Yeah, that's all sucks. That sucks so much. And I guess we could just end it on that. Geez, that was a pretty sad way to wrap up the video, man. I often think about this game because, in case you didn't know, I kinda like it. But when I'm not thinking about how great this game's story is, or how awesome the character design is, which I love the look for this game, the designs for everything, especially the characters, I love the character design for Hollow Knight. It is one of my favorite things ever. I just love the character design. But when I'm not gushing over all that random stuff about this game, I'm thinking about how messed up the Radiance is and how awful it is to be infected. And then my mind begins to think about the Hollow Knight and what they went through, and I just get really sad and disturbed. All of the moments I discussed in this game disturbed me, with its creepy areas, disturbing characters, and especially those darn freaking Flukes, dude. This game had a lot of unexpected horror, and I eat that up. And discussing Hollow Knight in a video is pretty fun because the chain events in a lot of people's playthrough of this game can vary greatly, and the story isn't too confining. I bring this up because it sort of allowed me just to yap about whatever and not worry too much about skipping any important context beforehand. There's exceptions to this, but it was just fun talking freely like this. I also gotta state that I am not the Hollow Knight lore expert, y'all. The story in this game is pretty tough to put together, and I had a lot of help from the Hollow Knight wiki and from a small video on YouTube made by a guy called Mossbag covering the story of Hollow Knight. It's a very small video, by the way. It has like just a couple views. Despite me having help putting this game story together, I still probably mess something up. I'm of course very grateful if you stuck around this video despite me messing anything up if I did. If I messed anything up, you'll probably let me know in the comments, and you do you. But once again, thank you Mossbag and the people behind the Hollow Knight wiki. This video wouldn't be possible without you guys. I'm currently, as I'm writing the script, playing through Hollow Knight's sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, in hopes to find more horror to hopefully make a part 2 to this video. I haven't found anything yet though, so we'll see if I do. My current idea for my next video is to discuss a game called Outer Wilds. It's like this space game with some eerie and heartbreaking moments in it. If that sounds fun to you, or if you like this video at all, yeah, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help me out. And also, I think this only works on mobile, but consider hyping up the video. Doing that really helps the video and my channel get out there in the algorithm. It especially helps smaller channels like mine, so if you really want to show support, go ahead and hype the video for your boy, and I'll give you a big fat smooch. Alright, I'm sorry. If you just made it to the end of this video, that's a lot of support on its own, so thank you for that. Goodbye to everyone that watched this video, and please don't forget guys, I love y'all. Bye bye. Also, I think Hornet's hot.